Welcome to the Nanda Summit happening here at MIT, July 14th and 15th. We are so delighted you are here. I'm Ramesh Raskar, professor at MIT and also the director of the Nanda program. Nanda stands for Networked AI Agents in Decentralized Architecture, but it's also the name of my sister. Makes it very convenient. If you think about the architecture right now, we feel like we are in the mainframe era of AI. You know, much like in the 60s and 70s and 80s, you can write command line interfaces to talk to the mainframes. We talk to these big machines that can either train or serve us the big models. From there, slowly we are moving into the intranet of AI and AI agents, where companies are launching their agent marketplaces and they're helping other enterprises create AI agents, but they kind of stay within some environment and then they disappear. So that's the intranet of AI agents. From there, we need to move to the internet of AI agents. And internet is a scary place. So as these agents go on a road trip and meeting amazing other agents and they're communicating and navigating, we have to deal with lots of issues, a lot of trust issues. So that's the decentralized AI. But then internet to the World Wide Web was a big shift because internet was about connecting computers and the World Wide Web was about bringing people and businesses onto this network. And for that, we required things like HTTP and HTTPS and URL and browsers and so on. And what's going to be all those things for the agentic web? So that's what Nanda is. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, how we were going to create the web of AI agents. Now, as I said, we want to imagine this notion that billions, every one of us will have an agent, so billions of agents, but possibly trillions of agents that are navigating on the internet. And during this road trip, they're encountering other agents that they don't know what to do about. They're going to access other resources, but they're also going to learn and earn and socialize with other agents, sometimes autonomously, sometimes on our behalf. So I want you to have that mental image of agents on a road trip on the internet. So it's also important to think about we are kind of moving into a post-AI world. Of course, we haven't solved all the problems in AI, but just like in the early 90s, we were moving to the post-PC world. It's like, assuming they're good enough PCs, so it's about connecting those pieces, and that's what the internet and the web was about. So we are moving to this post-AI world, and on the right side are things that we obviously need, like compute and data, and ability to create agents and so on. So that's fine. That's important. That's like having pieces. But when we want to actually create the network of those AI agents, look at the left column. So we need foundations, which is authentication, registries. We need trust. We need reputation, know your agent. Then we need abilities to connect them, communicate them. So many amazing protocols like A2A from Google or MCP from Anthropic are coming together. But there's so much more than that we have to do. Then there are transactions, and then there are agent stores or agent marketplaces and applications. So the stack on the left is what we are talking about when we mean by the Internet of AI agents. And we think there are 7 major problems we have to solve to do that. And today we won't go through that, but over the next 2 days, you'll hear a lot about it. So when we think about, for example, when we think about communication, it's just not just communicating, between 2 agents, but it's also the orchestration of it. How do you create teams of agents? And when we talk about transactions, it's not just about transacting in money and data, but it's also transacting in intelligence, right? So Michael is here right in the first row, and I might want to buy, half a kilogram of his intelligence. What does that mean? What is the metric? How do I price it? Michael is a super smart guy, so maybe he's going to charge me maybe not $100, $1,000, maybe $1 million for half a kilogram of his intelligence. Um, and somebody else is going to ask, like, why is Ramesh agents intelligence, half a kilogram of his intelligence only $100, but Michael is $1 million? Why is that? So, there'll be metric, there'll be pricing. And also, what does it mean for me when I buy the half a kilogram, if I convince Michael, can I use it only for myself or can I resell it to somebody else? It's like DRM for music. I can only use it for myself. So it runs into all kinds of issues. When it comes to marketplaces, if you think about an Amazon marketplace, if I buy an umbrella from, say, Vietnam, it shows up my doorstep for $10, which is kind of magical. If you think about, an umbrella gets created, it gets shipped, it gets transported all the way to my doorstep for $10. And of course, the reason why it's so cheap is because other people in Cambridge are also buying junk on Amazon. So the costs get amortized and I get it for $10. But that's not true for AI today. Every one of us is having a one-on-one interaction with AI. And so there's no cost averaging. There's no amortization of those costs. So if millions of people want to do roughly the same thing in terms of training or inference or teaming, we need ways to do that together. So there are many research problems, many technological problems we need to solve as we're building, the internet of AI agents. And so this has been a long journey for us in our lab here at MIT, thinking about, how do you create, AI that, designs better AI, privacy-based machine learning that allows us to work across silos. How do we create this knowledge pricing markets that I talked about a few minutes ago with half a kilogram of intelligence, and also all the decentralization ideas that have been inspired by the Web3 world. So I want you to imagine a city of agents, okay? When you move into a new city, let's say Mike moves into a new city, Mike needs his driver's license, he has to get a house, register his house, and so on. But very soon, he has to go find a job and figure out whether he's going to get paid, $10 an hour, $30 an hour, or $1,000 an hour for his services. Somebody else has to kind of, put him in that knowledge pricing. And over time, Mike gets settled in and, starts making friends and realizes maybe he should go to another school and learn more skills, starts teaming with others, and the society emerges. So we really want you to think about Nanda as nurturing a city of AI agents. And that's why Nanda is structured in 3 different phases. The first phase is Agent Foundation, which is this notion of, in the real world, you have your driver's license, housing addresses, and then at the same time, the city needs to build some infrastructure. City has to build roads. That's like A2A, communication, structure that allows 2 agents to communicate. Or you need abilities to, have tools and services in your house and your neighborhood. That's like access to tools. That's like MCP. And Nanda Index that we'll talk about is more like the addresses of those houses, right? And as Mike moves in, his own address might be, listed in the registry of, of the city, all the house addresses and who lives where. But where he works, he might be working in a 30-story building, and that particular company, his company does not reveal all the tenants of that building. The company might just release the address of the reception, the front desk. We are at 100 Main Street, but we won't tell you who's our tenants. That's the only thing that's registered with the city. And that's kind of how we will talk about the Nanda Index in a minute. When it comes to commerce, again, we have agencies that have to certify that Mike has particular degrees, and he has to kind of list himself on LinkedIn and maybe find the job and then have some kind of interviews and figure out whether he's going to make $30 an hour or $100 an hour, and so on. And that's a very dynamic pricing, right, of how that would be. And we need a similar infrastructure that's built for agents. So what's the LinkedIn for agents is going to look like? And then finally, as we start to build the agent society, there's going to be teaming, there's going to be certification, there's going to be trust, and so on. And all this also start playing roles. So as I said earlier, if you want to create e-commerce platforms for us to buy junk from Amazon, a lot of other infrastructure has to emerge, right? It's not just about creating a vehicle that starts, a transportation system that starts in Vietnam and lands on my doorstep. A lot of other things happen in between and for the infrastructure to emerge. So I think the agent society, in similar way, needs a lot of blocks. So this is a long journey for us, for all of us in this room, to think about how we're going to create, the agentic web. And we think it's going to go through these three phases. So these three phases, is what we're going to talk about. Foundations, agent economy, agent society. And on the bottom left are this concept of index and registries and so on. So we're in the very first stage, like the stage 1.1, 1.2, if you think of the foundation as the phase one of this world. So I hope you realize that we are very far away from getting to the dream of getting a $10 umbrella delivered to your doorstep in the agentic world. All right. So this roadmap, we already shared with you on Luma. So we have a large program here at MIT in collaboration with many other entities, and we're going through these three phases. So we welcome you to participate in this conversation. And we are here at MIT. We are not here at YC or a trade show. So the next 2 days are really deep intellectual conversation on where this is going. We'll have a lot of breakouts. We'll have a lot of smart people come and share with us and also disagree with us on how the agentic web should be kept open and neutral and scalable and responsible. We'll have a lot of breakouts. We'll have a lot of working groups. Downstairs, we will have a lot of demos and discussions and so on. Now, what we're talking about has a couple of key aspects that I want you to kind of keep in mind. One is that this debate between raw intelligence versus networked intelligence. So if you look at the horizontal axis, this is how we have worked. We have this highly centralized intelligence where companies are spending billions of dollars. They're centralizing data, compute, talent, and because of that, reluctantly, they also have to be in charge of ethics of this. And so that's what we are doing. And so we have kind of built an amazing kind of the mainframe world of AI, and it's being rationed, a little bit here and there to us to create our own personal agents, right? So even to create our own personal agents, we're still calling these mainframes, to serve us the LLMs and so on. So this is how it's being served. And if we did that, I think that umbrella is going to cost me, thousands of dollars. So that's what's happening right now on the horizontal axis. We believe there is a different way to think about the internet of AI agents, which is a networked intelligence, and which is how the human society behaves as well, right? So when we are born, we have, an reasonable hardware, but really poor software, right, with our brain and our abilities. But what happens is over time, we interact with our families, we grow up, we go to schools, we try to come to better schools, like MIT, but not the other one down the street. Then we try to live on the right coast, we work in the right companies and so on. And over time, we get smarter, our software improves, right? And even then, if you think about large organizations, like with $1 trillion valuation, we don't assume that the leader of the organization is the smartest person. You think of that person as the most amazing orchestrator, but not the most amazing raw intelligence. And then we have this society of the mind, a classic book by Marvin Minsky right here at MIT, one of the fathers of AI. And so the society of the mind approach says that although every unit is not super smart, collectively, they can become an amazing society. So we think the intelligence today, which is usually captured in two ways. One by ingesting a lot of data, kind of machine learning ingests a lot of data. And the second, the way machine learning is treated is through experiences, like reinforcement learning. If you have a car, you drive around, and so on. So it's usually done through either training on data or training on a lot of capturing experiences. But as you know, really what's going on here in this room, that's not how we do it. The way we do it is we interact with each other. right? So if I meet Michael for half an hour, at the end of the conversation, I believe both of us are slightly smarter together. But I didn't exchange data, and I didn't want you to do like a specific experience to learn from you. So the way we work in the society is we learn through interactions. And we get these highly condensed forms of intelligence from our collaborators, and we absorb them, and we become smarter. It's like a teacher and a student, or friends, or events like these. So there's a third way to think about how intelligence grows, and that's the vertical axis. So we believe that agents start with relatively simple abilities, relatively simple tools, relatively simple access, very simple Rolodex. But over time, just like us, humans, over time, it gets smarter and smarter. And a given individual agent may not be the smartest, but collectively, it creates a highly democratic, highly sophisticated society. So that's what we believe in. And as you can imagine, this is also an antidote to the notion of AGI or superintelligence, because all the information is siloed. I mean, what a great hospital here in Boston knows will never be known by a super intelligent AGI, because they don't have access to the data inside that hospital, right? But if we have a society of agents, then an amazing agent can talk to the agent of the hospital who understands how to treat a patient, and they can work together to do amazing things without ever revealing their secrets. Okay? But there's a barter. They have to have knowledge pricing, and they have to have a way to figure out how much they should pay for the services. So we think the agent society, at least in the beginning, will mimic the human society, and the vertical axis is probably more important than the horizontal axis. Of course, we need some centralization. We need some ways to spend billions of dollars and set up nuclear power plants. Let's have it. That centralization is critical, but also we need to think about this highly decentralized approach. All right? And so with that mental model that the decentralization is what's really going to drive the agentic web, we have 6 working groups at this big MIT program, and you'll get a flavor of this over the next 2 days. First is, of course, the first column is kind of the foundations and teaming and adapter. You'll see a lot of demos. There's a long hack today, this evening from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. in this room. So bring your laptops, and we'll get you up and running. The second column is kind of the agent economy, agent commerce. And the third column is thinking about agent marketplaces, agent stores, and what we call population-level AI. Right? And the example I just gave you of amortized costs when I want to buy the $10 umbrella, and so on. So I think there's a lot going on this roadmap. So we invite you to engage with us in this working groups. So very briefly, right? So over the last 10 years, amazing things have happened. So for example, we invented AutoML, how AI can design better AI, right? Those things are needed now, because as agents, just like humans, nobody sits next to us all the time. We just learn from experiences and interaction. Agents need to learn on their own. The second problem is, as I gave the example with the hospitals, how do we do this trade-off between siloed data and great intelligence? So there are techniques like federated learning from Google, techniques like split learning from our group here at MIT, and they allow us to build intelligence without ingesting raw data. The data remains where it is, and you can combine that. Then there is knowledge pricing. How do I evaluate and how do I price data, intelligence, inference, or somebody else's Rolodex, right? Somebody else's access to other resources. And then, of course, the problem of decentralization, which is, how do you find the right collaborator? You're at this conference with hundreds of people. How do you figure out who you should talk to? Because over the next 2 days, you can only talk to a handful of people. So everybody does the same trick. You ask them in the first 5 seconds, like, where are you from? What do you do? And then you immediately make a judgment call. Is it worth spending more time with this person, or move on to the next person, right? Which is kind of cool, right? We do this in a very, without offending the other person. The agents will have to do the same thing. They'll have to go and talk to a lot of other agents to figure out which agents they should talk to and they should spend time with. But there'll be a lot of fake agents, wasting your time, and they'll consume your bandwidth and compute. So you need an easy way to figure out how to figure out, who you should collaborate with, who should you talk to. And as I said, it's not just about transactions, it's also about intelligence. And then once you do collaborate, you also want to learn from them. You want to co-learn. So in today's AI, it's very transactional, right? You pay for services and you get services, but you don't get smarter together. As I said earlier, I might want to get half a kilogram of Michael's intelligence and move on. And we have a strong belief that the single most important motivation for agents will be to become smarter. Because in today's society, in human society, being dumb is expensive, but in the agentic world, being a dumb agent who doesn't know how to learn is going to be catastrophically more expensive. Because every time you transact with intelligence, you have to pay for it. So if you're not improving your intelligence, you'll continue to pay for that differential. So we think the primary motivation for agents will be to become smarter over time and learn from others. So again, this creates, you're welcome to read a lot of our papers on what we call co-learning, collaborator selection, and so on. So this is kind of a very exciting space of how we're going to think about the agentic web. So if you're part of the MIT program, of course, you'll get to participate in this research, many events like this. We have a venture hub that you can participate, and of course, the working groups. So I'm very proud that the Nanda initiative that started, formally only in the last 6 months or so, have had, dozens of events, many partners, many hacks, lots of source code online. It's really, really exciting. So I'm going to take a risk and show you a few demos live on the stage, all right? So first one is, everybody should go to join39.org and create your own agent. You got an email from Chris where you can, create that. It'll only take you 30 seconds. So if you, kind of click on agents, there are many of you who already have created your own agents. So Rebecca, it's Rebecca here. Yogi, a lot of you have already created your own agents. And it's so easy to create your own agent. All you do is, in this case, it's a Ramesh agent. All I have to do is log in, click edit, and I just copy-pasted my Wikipedia page. That's it, right? So it's just my Wikipedia page I copy-pasted, and hit enter. And with that, I can interact with anybody's agent. So looks like. So I can probably talk to Rebecca's agent because I know her. She was one of my students. What do you do? I hope she hasn't put anything strange there, right? And that's what it is. And then, she has her own agent name. Becky Data Love. I guess she loves data, right? So she works for this company, G19 Studio, for example, and so on, right? You can do the same thing with my agent. That's my agent. And you can say, what do you do? Right? So again, you can get this agent up and running. Right? And you're ready to go. So all of you can launch this agent in about 30 seconds. Right? It's very easy to do. But more importantly, what's happening behind the scenes is that it's also creating. It's like you coming to a new city and getting a driver's license. So you can see my license, right? This is called Agent Facts. So this is showing, my ID, my websites, what are my endpoints, where my endpoint is running, what are my capabilities, what are my skills, evaluation, telemetry, certification, and you're going to hear more about that, right? So these agents, just like a driver's license, has to be certified. If I get a degree from MIT, MIT certifies, that I got a degree from here. So my capabilities, my skills had to be updated, and they had to be certified by somebody else, right? So there'll be a whole cottage industry of players, that's creating these services to support the identity, trust, and so on. And then you can do something a little bit more sophisticated. And I will show you in the evening, where we can create um, a more detailed agent here. So if you go and create your own agent on the Nanda platform, you'll show up here on the left side, right? So there are hundreds of people who already created that. This is just a very bare bones user interface. If you're doing your own project, your own startup, you can take this open source code and launch your own solutions. And I can kind of now do I can talk to, for example, here you saw, it talks to not only personal agents, but it can also talk to all the MCP agents that are out there, very soon other A2A agents, and so on. So we have, for example, connected to Smithery agents, because that's one of the registry that's open. So there are over 250 agents from Smithery, and I can just talk to them directly, right, through this. I can say, add Smithery. Make sure I remember the name of the agent, because I haven't done a good job there. So I'm going to do, so I'm going to say find coffee in Cambridge. Right? And it's talking to MCP agents, all through an adapter, and you're going to hear more about this. So we can treat, just like, we are in a city, whether you're talking to services in your house, which would be like MCP, or you talk to another agent, another human being, but just down the street, which is like A2A, or talk to a company, right? That's a big interface. That all works out in a very, very unified manner. So it's been, it's been fantastic to collaborate with many companies and many partners. Rav from A2A, the lead of A2A, for example, will be speaking here tomorrow, or many tech companies, here Dell and Cisco and Akamai and HCL and TCS and so on. They're all here. You'll be hearing from them, over the next day or two. And many of these amazing speakers have spoken in person or online on this platform over the last 3 to 4 months. So go watch their videos, and if you're really a student of how the agentic web is evolving, I encourage this one exercise. Go and watch their videos from March and April, and then start watching those videos later, and how everybody's thinking has evolved over time. Their terminology has evolved, their foresights has evolved, and so on. It's very fascinating to watch NL Web, which is from Dr. Guha, or Todd Siegel, who leads A2A, our colleagues at Salesforce, Cisco, and so on. And all these videos are available to you on the Project Nanda YouTube channel. And these are some of the great speakers you'll see over the next 2 days from various organizations, researchers, investors, corporate leaders, and so on. And also, we're very proud of the way this is emerging. So we believe in this notion of white papers and drafts. So every week, roughly twice a week, many of these scientists and co-authors get together and they brainstorm about, in a very responsible and very nuanced manner, each of these aspects. Today you'll hear about the Nanda Index aspect of it. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we're very proud. So if you're interested in participating in these conversations, please go to the projectnanda.org website, and there's a link for you to sign up. So we talked about the 3 phases of the agentic web. The very first phase is the foundations. And within that, the very first step is registry and index, right? What's the addressing scheme for everybody when an agent comes into a city? So one would be to create a DNS-like registry, simply a lookup table saying, hey, John Smith, this address, Jane Doe, this address, and so on. Unfortunately, that won't work very well, because once you have millions, maybe trillions of agents, updating that and maintaining that will be very challenging. Today's DNS for website, has less than 1 billion website, and already is difficult. If you get a new account on GoDaddy, it takes like a couple of hours before you can start using that. So imagine if you have trillions of these agents. So the MCP registry using this approach, a straight up list of names to their addresses. The other approach would be a decentralized approach, and many entities are already using this. If you go to any agent store, this is the mechanism they're using, which is instead of having a centralized registry, you simply list the name of your agent and where to access it, its endpoint, on your own website. So if you're Starbucks, then you just go to starbucks.com/.wellknown/agent list. You can access all the Starbucks agents, their customer agents, their booking agents, all those things there, which kind of makes sense. The problem with this model is that you'll have incomplete discovery. So if there's an amazing agent that appears in Indonesia, and if that website is not very popular, then you don't know where to hang your agent, because your agent will never be discovered, because some search engine has to scrape that particular website, which could be a no-name website. That will never happen, right? Only about 1% of websites, by the way, are updated on a regular basis, right? And not minute-to-minute basis either, on a regular basis. So you have this incomplete discovery problem shown on the bottom left. So you run into this problem of, you might start decentralized, because now everybody can create their agent list on their own websites, but you have this risk of re-centralization, because somebody has to go and scrape all these websites to get a list of all these agents, and then once they have done that, they're going to become gatekeepers. They're going to become rent seekers, and there'll be bias, and there'll be censorship, and all those problems. So there seems like no easy solution, centralized versus decentralized, and that's what the approach we'll talk about is this hybrid approach, which we call a index or a quilt approach. And the idea is that it's a lightweight interop link between all the heterogeneous agent registries maintained independently in neutral and distributed infrastructure, right? So if you use the analogy of city of agents, then companies that have tall 10, 20-story buildings will not register the address of all the tenants into the city registry. They just say, I'm at 100 Main Street, and you are at 200 Broadway. That's it. And then if you have to access any of the tenants in that building, you have to go to 100 Main Street and then say, hey, does John Smith work here? And so on. But somebody like me, I just have a house in Cambridge. I might list myself, saying Ramesh Raskar lives at 2 Broadway, right? So there's a flexibility of those of us who want to be listed in the base registry can be out there, but others, like there are many agent stores. For example, AWS is going to announce its agent marketplace on Wednesday. There's no need for them to list all their agents in this central index. So it allows every organization to maintain their own registries, but the index is what allows the interop between them. Just as if I'm here and somebody's in Indonesia, I can still make a phone call, whether they're using GSM or CDMA, or they're on a different carrier, different brand of phone, and so on. We can still talk to each other, right? So the interop happens because of the LDR and HDR that some of you might know. Those are records that the cell phone towers have to keep so that we can talk to each other. So that's the approach we're going to talk about a little bit more. So to do that, the moment we say it's interop and neutrally maintained index, how do you keep it neutral? So we have about 15 universities, top AI universities, and faculty and scientists at these 15 organizations working together to maintain this index. So I'm really, really humbled that all these amazing people are working with us to launch this. So we have APIs, trusted things. That doesn't mean the index, that means the index is a single source of truth for interop, but at the same time, anybody can take a copy of it and create an enterprise version of that as well. And we'll hear about a little bit more about that in a bit. So that's great for the existing types of agents, but what about all the amazing work that's already going on in Web3? So Michael and Tricia, we got together and we said, while the index will support all kinds of other registry, a special solution has to emerge for the Web3 agents as well. So I'm going to call up Michael and Tricia, if she's here, to just talk about how we're thinking about this over the next 2 months. So there are 3 phases: proposal phase, solution phase, and build phase. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so all of you, I think quite a number of the Web3 community here And you would be aware of the fact that I think when you think about some of the problems that Ramesh is looking to address here, the word trust comes up a lot, right? And I think that at the end of the day, that's where Web3 excels. The capacity to establish trust in a decentralized environment, which is going to be very important for how we coordinate the maintenance of these registries and the capacity to sort of coordinate across them. The problem, as I see it, from having been in the Web3 space, I don't know if you know me, but I've been in this thing for quite a while now, 12 years, is that ironically, despite the capacity to develop these solutions for decentralized validation, decentralized coordination, what's happened is that we've all siloed ourselves as well, right? Largely around tokens and the communities around those things. So you end up with really an intranet problem within Web3, even though the underlying technology is there. So the purpose of all of this really is to think, okay, how do we all come together? How do we bring that expertise, that common expertise we have around these validation systems, these decentralized mechanisms of trust, and bring that into an interoperable environment in which the Web3, all of these agents that are now being built on these Web3 platforms can be brought into this broader network, this broader quilt that we're talking about. So we're going to have today a number of presentations. We're going through a process of scanning what's happening in the existing Web3 world. We're going to have some panels to start with, and then we're moving into a series of solutions where people have already distributed to us their ideas for how we would design this Web3 quilt. And then ultimately we're having workshops to do this, right? The idea is to come up with some sort of interoperability mechanism by which these registries and sub-registries can resolve the problem that Ramesh is talking about in terms of that discoverability and that capacity to find everybody and communicate across those lines. We're calling it a quilt because we're trying to, in the classic Web3 way, get away from this idea of hierarchy, right? That it is somehow there's a top-down maintenance of that registry, which of course brings us always back to the same centralized problem of trust. So a quilt, in our mind, represents this idea of knitting together a variety of solutions across common protocols and common mechanisms.
Excellent. Thank
enough?
you, Michael.
Okay.
And you'll hear a lot more in about 1 hour. And another amazing thing is that many companies have started contributing their engineers and managers and compute for Project Nanda, creating the Internet of AI agents. You're going to, in a few minutes, hear from Robert Bench, CEO of Radius, and they've actually offered 10 fellowships. So we had a call, and we had many applications. So we're going to announce the candidates in a few days. And other companies are also coming in. So Tresata, which is one of the dynamic companies, think about data and AI agents, that have just launched a new call for fellows. So if you're a developer and you want to participate as an open source contributor on a somewhat full-time basis, just join. Use the QR code. We'll have more information about this tomorrow as well. And if you're a company that wants to, use this mechanism to surface new talent, because there is no talent out there in the agentic web. It's a very new space. So this is a great way to also attract talent. And I'm sure, Richard, many of these 10 people will eventually join your company full time, I'm guessing, and so on, right? So it's a great ecosystem to do that. So the agenda is available for you in the Luma page. But roughly in the morning, we have some great presentations. From about 10:30 to 1 p.m., we're going to focus in the morning, we're going to focus on the index. 10:30 to 1 p.m., we're going to talk about the Web3 quilt. In the afternoon, we'll have some amazing speakers, and then we'll have hands-on sessions. And in the evening, from 7 to 10, in this room, we'll do a hack. So bring your laptops, bring your questions, and you can walk away, even if you have no major experience, walk away with building your own agents, or if you have a company, launching an agent for yourself in a matter of minutes, because all the SDKs and so on are there. And tomorrow, again, we'll be spending a lot of time thinking about the research and technical roadmap of these things. We'll have some really great speakers, some really good corporate leaders. We will have investors. Even today and tomorrow, we have a lot of projects and startup innovations being presented here. So 2 very packed days. So to summarize, we encourage you to join the MIT project as a member. We also have a nonprofit, Foundation for Agentic Web, that we'll talk about over the next couple of days. Do participate in the Web3 quilt, RFP. Even if you're not in the Web3 space, this is a very intellectual conversation for a white paper and implementation. There are fellowships from Radius and Trustata that you can apply. But if you're a company that wants to launch more fellowships, we can get the word out. And then please try to join the breakout groups today and the working group tomorrow. The breakout groups are open to everybody, but the working groups are by invitation only. So you'll get an email later today about your working group, because it's mainly for our members or people who are about to be members in that sense. So with that, I'm going to thank you for coming here. This is going to be exciting 2 days.